If you were in the YouTube Let's Play and gaming sphere in late 2017, you've probably heard of a game called Doki Doki Literature Club, a dating sim visual novel that took the typical tropes of the genre and gave it a horrifying twist. The game blew up, reaching almost 7,500 peak players in December of 2017 and spawning a massive fan base. Along with it came great critical acclaim, with fans and critics alike praising it for its sad but scary story and its subversion of the norm when it comes to dating sims. One aspect of the game that I think deserves more recognition though is in one of the game's major themes, that being the barrier between fiction and reality and how it's manipulated into making you care about the characters. For those of you who don't know the game or need a refresher, I'll briefly go over the plot of the game. You play as a self-insert protagonist who gets roped into joining the school's literature club by his childhood friend Sayori. You soon meet Natsuki, a bratty tsundere trope who enjoys manga and cooking, Yuri, a shy nervous girl who likes to read and make tea, and Monika, the club president, who plays piano. After deciding to join the club, you can choose to spend time with Sayori, Natsuki, or Yuri based on whom you wrote a poem for the previous day. The time you spend with them reveals more about their personality and why they act the way they do. Most of the game is spent learning about these characters during this time, and you come to know and understand the characters whose route you went down quite well. At the end of the week, Sayori goes home early, and you decide who to pick between Natsuki and Yuri to help with preparations for next week's festival. In either case, they come to your house and you spend time together. Before they arrive, however, you decide to go check on Sayori. Talking with her reveals that Sayori has been suffering from depression her whole life, but she also refuses to tell anyone because she doesn't want to make them worry about her. After preparing for the festival with whoever you chose, Sayori meets you outside and confesses her love. You can choose to either reciprocate her feelings or tell her she's your dearest friend. Either way, the next day comes and something is creepy. Monika is acting strangely and Sayori is nowhere to be found. Monika gives you a very disturbing poem from Sayori. The words "get out of my head" are repeated over and over again, with the final line of the poem being, "but a poem is never actually finished. It just stops moving." You rush to her house only to find her hanging from her ceiling. The screen glitches and the music distorts, putting you in complete disarray. The main character, devastated, says that he'll never go back to the club ever. The end screen appears, and all of a sudden you're back on the main menu, only Sayori's sprite is glitched, like someone did a poor job of removing it. Your character goes through the game again, only Sayori is gone and everybody but Monika is acting strangely. Blacked out text that appears only for a split second to disappear, sprites glitching and shifting, everything is the same, but off. These characters that you grew to know before are different, traces of their personality are still there, but they're exaggerated, disturbing versions of their former selves. Yuri especially becomes more and more obsessive and unpredictable, culminating when she confesses her love to you, taking a knife and stabbing herself. You spend the weekend there, watching her body decay, unable to move or speak. When Monika and Natsuki come back and see the horrific sight, Monika apologizes for leaving you there on your own for the weekend, and both Yuri and Natsuki are promptly deleted. Suddenly, you're back on the main menu, but the only one on the title screen is Monika. Load back into the game and you're greeted with the classroom, completely empty save for a single desk and Monika. Monika greets you, but not the character in the game. She greets you, the person playing the game. Monika confesses, saying how she knew the entire time that this was just a game, a simulation. Through knowing this, she realizes that she has the ability to manipulate the game, to delete or change things about the world and the characters. She's responsible for Sayori's increased depression, she made Yuri more obsessive, and she caused all of those strange occurrences during the second act, all because she was trying to get closer to you, the player. Monika is alone and trapped in this fake reality, so she will do anything to be with you. She doesn't care about her friends, because they aren't real. So she did what she thinks she had to do to make it impossible for you to pick anyone besides her. Monika simply just sits there, watching you, and occasionally talks about all kinds of topics. However, should you enter the game files, find the character file named Monika and delete it, logging back into the game destroys everything, deleting Monika's character almost entirely. In the inky black void, Monika's text box appears. Angry, Monika yells at you, saying that she did this all for you, sacrificed everything for you, and that you've thrown it all away. She accuses you of just wanting to torture her, to only pretending to be kind. Monika's text box disappears. Waiting in the void for a time brings back another text box, only this time it's Monika apologizing. Realizing all the terrible things that she's done, she no longer blames you for deleting her, completely breaking down and admitting that she ruined everything. Monika then uses the little power she has left, restarts the game, only this time, Monika is gone. You go through a day of the game, meet the same cast of characters, minus Monica, and discover that Sayori is the new president. After everybody else has left, Sayori tells you that she knows everything that Monica has done. As the screen shakes and static appears, Sayori thanks you for deleting Monica, because now they can spend forever together. All of a sudden, another text box appears. It reads, "No, I won't let you hurt him. I'm sorry. I was wrong. There's no happiness here after all. Goodbye, Literature Club." Everything is deleted one last time, and all of a sudden you're in another void. Monica's voice is heard greeting you and asking if she can play a song for you. The song plays over the credits, which show images from the game, which are quickly deleted as Monica deconstructs the entire game. At the end of the credits, a note appears, written by Monica, saying that she understands now that happiness is impossible to find in the Literature Club, and thanking the player for being friends with everybody, and for helping Monica's dream come true, for being part of the Literature Club. The game then closes, and attempting to reboot the game without uninstalling and reinstalling the game leaves you on that note. It's a profoundly unsatisfying ending, leaving you wondering if something more could have been done, if anything. This is only emphasized by the ending song, in which Monica sings of a fictional existence where everyone is happy and that she can be with you. It leaves you with this sense that happiness here was impossible to begin with, and that all attempts at finding a happy ending are pointless. It isn't possible to find happiness at the end of this game, right? The dating sim/visual novel genre as a whole exists as a fantasy. While pretty much any video game puts you in a fictional world, not many give you as much choice over how the story progresses as visual novels. While some people may not have been as lucky to experience in real life what is portrayed in the genre, other people might love seeing the character and relationship growth that is typical of the genre. Doki Doki is a game that starts out much the same, and I don't think that the game's horror would work very well if it had been trying to scare you from the beginning. Act 1 serves a very important purpose. It puts your guard down and connects you to these characters. Act 2 then takes those characters that you've grown to know and had the chance to emotionally connect to, and distorts them, turning them into warped, characteristic versions of their former selves. If the game had started with the horror from the beginning, I think it would be much weaker. The characters are made much scarier because you know that this is not what they're normally like. As a quick aside, I just want to mention really quick because I think it's cool that throughout the game, in all of the distorted soundtracks, the piano is the only instrument never distorted because Monica is represented musically with the piano. Except in the song In the Void, I Still Love You, where the piano is muffled, because Monica is in the process of being deleted. Also in the Ohayo Sayori track at the beginning of the game, there's no piano because Monica hasn't been introduced yet, and the track is mainly guitar because Sayori is usually represented musically as a guitar or a ukulele. DDLC has a lot of storytelling through music, but that's not the focus of this video. I just had to mention a couple of my favorites quickly. Back to it. Since pretty much the entire game is focused around them, Doki Doki needs to have strong characters. And, while they are originally introduced as not much more than common tropes in anime and dating sims, Sayori being the childhood friend Dere, Natsuki the bratty tsundere, and Yuri the shy dandere, Doki Doki goes to great lengths to flesh out its characters because it needs you to connect to them for the story to work. And while the characters might seem two-dimensional in the beginning, literally, I think that's a strength that the game uses to its advantage. The game takes these characters and their tropes and humanizes them, giving them realistic reasons why they act the way they do and giving depth to those tropes in a way that I've never seen replicated anywhere else. Let's go through and talk about each character in depth, ending with Monica as she's as special case. Yuri is a shy bookworm whose mature and sophisticated nature carries over into everything she does. She speaks eloquently and proficiently about the topics that she's knowledgeable about and doesn't hesitate to try to teach others about them. In terms of literature, Yuri prefers complicated novels, often reading some kind of surrealist horror, as seen by her book choice, The Portrait of Markov. Her poems are full of deep symbolism and can be difficult to pick apart, like in her first poem, Ghost Under the Light, which depicts the subject of the poem finding calm and solace under the last remaining streetlight, in a place where every other light has disappeared. If I had to guess, the light represents the main character of the game, and Yuri is finding peace and comfort from you where nobody else is there to give it to her. But while Yuri gives off this facade of maturity, it's not much more than a front. Yuri takes great pride in her intelligence and thoughtfulness, which can come across as arrogant or patronizing, especially when she argues with Natsuki, whose simplistic writing style and often abrasive personality tends to lead the two to argue. However, these things stem from a deep insecurity and self-doubt. Above anything else, Yuri's most intense desire is to be liked. She has trouble making and keeping friends because she comes on too strongly about her passions. Due to this, she isolates herself because she's afraid of somebody disliking her for being too zealous about something. Having poor social skills, oftentimes she doesn't even realize that she said something wrong for a moment, and then will rapidly apologize for even the smallest of things. In the end, though, she's a caring and generous person, excited for someone to enjoy her passions, evidenced by the tea she brings to the club meetings every day, and the books she lends you to read with her. Natsuki initially appears to be brash, stubborn, and highly defensive, but that aggressive exterior is merely just a shield to hide herself from people who she is afraid will judge her. More specifically, she is afraid people will judge her for her love of manga and preference in writing style, and she will adamantly defend it to the point where she can come off as aggressive. In her poem, Amy Likes Spiders, Natsuki depicts the narrator of the poem judging Amy for her fascination with spiders. Besides this one quirk, Amy is an upstanding individual, popular, helpful, and pretty. The narrator of the poem, however, looks past all of this and focuses on the fact that she likes spiders, and refuses to be friends with Amy because of it. Natsuki is clearly drawing comparisons to how everybody judges her for liking something so strange without even getting to know her first. She has almost no support group, from judgmental friends to a neglectful and possibly abusive father, so she puts up a tough emotional wall to stop people from hurting her. If she lets you through that wall, however, you will find a sweet, caring person who is much more relaxed and less bossy when she's around somebody who she doesn't have to put her guard up for. Sayori is your childhood friend, a constant in your life, whose sunny and bright personality always helps to diffuse conflicts or make people feel better about themselves. She can be clumsy, and the protagonist at first thinks of her as somewhat airheaded, but her poems say otherwise. Sayori uses her writing to explore her feelings, and it sometimes exposes other sides of her personality. Although she may seem nothing more than ditzy, Sayori's poems and more serious moments show a more mature, contemplative person than you normally see on the outside. But Sayori has one big aspect of herself that she constantly tries to keep hidden. Sayori suffers from depression to the point where she doesn't even know when it started. She keeps it hidden, never telling anyone about it because others putting their energy and care into worrying about her makes her feel selfish. She doesn't feel worthy of others' care or attention, she doesn't want to drag anyone else down, and so she bottles up her emotions. She hides behind a mask of happiness and cheerfulness because she can't feel good about herself. She can at least try to make others feel good about themselves. However, deep down, Sayori still wants to be loved, and this contradiction makes her feel even worse. Should the player pursue another girl, Sayori suffers wanting the protagonist to love her, but feeling guilty about even thinking of taking something for herself. Should the player pursue Sayori, however, she still feels guilty, thinking that she doesn't deserve this care and attention that you are giving her. On the third day, Sayori gives you her poem Bottles. In it, the main subject stores her happy thoughts in glass bottles, and whenever a friend needs a happy thought, she takes one off the shelves and gives it to her friend. Eventually, she finds herself giving away more and more of these bottles, until there's nothing left but shards of happy thoughts scattered across the floor. It's meant to represent Sayori's self-sacrificing nature, and the fact that she only has so much of herself she can give away to help others. During the scene where she confesses her depression to the main character, a first-time player might look at that scene and feel terrible in the moment, but hopeful that things can get better. But, as somebody who has played through the game many times, I still want to feel this hope, but it's mixed with this overwhelming sense of dread. Walking up to Sayori's bedroom that final time is probably the most tense that I've ever felt playing any game. I sometimes will find myself pausing on that final line of dialogue for minutes at a time. But eventually, I open the door, and am greeted with perhaps the scene in all of fiction that makes me feel the most uncomfortable, frightened, and helpless that I've ever felt in a game. From this point on, everything changes for the worse, and the game reveals its true nature as much more than a simple visual novel. When Sayuri confesses her love to you, you are faced with an option: to reciprocate that love, or saying that she'll always be your greatest friend. Neither option changes Sayuri's death, but a first-time player wouldn't know that. They likely would try to return to a previous save file before she dies, but the game won't let you. It won't let you do over your mistake. In that way, it's similar to real life, how you can't go back and change your choices and will have to face the result. Sayuri's story cuts deep for me, not just because of the outcome, but because it feels so real, that it constantly has me wondering who around me could be feeling similar to this, who might be suffering without letting anybody know. I don't think her story is meant to be entirely a tragedy, though. One aspect of the wider audience reaction to this game that I felt was a mistake was making out Sayuri's entire character to be about the terrible thing that ends it. Although her story, like all the others in this game, doesn't have a happy ending, I feel like it's a disservice to her character to only recognize her as that girl from the anime horror game who hangs herself. Sayuri's character has more aspects to it than just her depression, and it's kind of sad that it's one of the only things the general public knows about the game, when there's so much more about the game than just the sad or scary things that happen in it. Monika very early on should not be seen as the same as the others. While Natsuki, Sayuri, and Yuri are walking stereotypes that get expanded upon as the game goes on, Monika isn't that. The only things we know about her from Acts 1 and 2 is that she plays piano, is hardworking and confident but has trouble managing conflicts and is relatively inexperienced when it comes to leadership. The game intentionally leaves this personality out as she's not supposed to have a route. When the player starts the game, Monika becomes self-aware, realizing that she's in a game and nothing around her, not even herself, is real. Can you imagine that? Being stuck in a two-dimensional existence where everybody around you is fake, but you know that there's a world beyond that you can never access. Desperate, she clings onto the first thing that she sees which is real, which just happens to be you. Monika falls in love with you, not the main character of the game like the others, but you, the person playing the game. It's more obsession than love, honestly. She doesn't know you, the player, personally. Monika is in love with the idea of reality, and she obsesses over you because you are the sole representation of what is real, and not a game. Monika doesn't have a route though. The game itself will not let you pick her. So Monika starts to mess with the game, changing things about the characters. She doesn't outright delete them yet though, because somewhere in the back of her mind, she still cares for them. She amplifies Sayuri's depression, thinking that'll lead to her not to confess to the MC, but instead leads to her death. Monika increases the unlikable traits of Natsuki and Yuri in an attempt to push the player towards herself. This eventually leads to Yuri's death, and Monika deletes everything else in a final attempt to make her own happiness. Left alone with nobody but the player, Monika explains herself and expresses that she doesn't miss the other girls, because to her, they were nothing more than fake personalities designed only to fall in love with you. This is her justification for killing them, as death happens all the time in games, and from her point of view, you have the same perspective as her, that it's all just some game. This leads to the section of the game called Monika's Talk. This section is here partially to make up for Monika's lack of screen time and character traits in the previous acts, and listening to them provides a more complete understanding of her character. Monika is polite and kind, but when she mentions the prior events of the game so far, she speaks of them in a cold, unattached manner, as if she's trying to separate her own selfish deeds she committed as being against lines of code in a video game, rather than against her friends. Monika will also occasionally give quite good advice, and usually ends each monologue saying how glad she is that you're here and that she's not alone. If you close the game during this time, when you come back, Monika asks you to do that as little as possible, as quitting the game makes her feel like she's been killed in a painful way. Eventually, Monika is deleted from the character folders, deconstructing the world and leaving Monika unable to manifest as anything but a text box. Monika is a controversial character. She does what she does out of loneliness and desperation, but she does some terrible and tremendously selfish things. And although she realizes what she does was selfish and terrible, the game doesn't force you to forgive her. When you play a dating sim, you exist in a fantasy where fake personalities are designed to fall in love with you. DDLC has one of its characters realizing that she's living in this fantasy. Monica doesn't stop to think that you chose to live in this fantasy, and forces you out of it into the closest to her own reality that she can get, forcing you to take her path. She thinks that everything she does is justified because nothing here is real, and that she's the closest to real that you could possibly get. Eventually, Monica realizes that she's wrong by acknowledging that even though it might not be real, that doesn't matter, that fictional stories and characters can affect reality and real people, and that she destroyed this fantasy that you chose to experience. Monica, realizing how her selfish actions hurt you and everyone she cares about, removes herself from the game and tries to let you have that fantasy, futile though it may be. And what I love about Monica's redemption is that it's left completely up to the player whether or not you forgive her. When it comes to redemption arcs in media, usually the audience is at the mercy of the characters, and if the characters decide to forgive the villain or not, regardless of their own personal opinions about it. But with DDLC, there's nobody but you. Monica isn't apologizing to a character in the game, she's apologizing asking for the player's forgiveness. And it has to be one of the most unique ways I've ever seen a character written. On Instagram, there's a page by the name of DDLC Confessions. People can send anonymous messages to the account about their experiences with the game, how it made them feel, and how it may have changed their life. They can range from heartfelt to depressing to cringy. The account really doesn't hold back in showing every aspect of the fandom for this game. I wanted to go through and read out some of these messages, and again, extreme content warning, some of these will get dark. The first message reads, "At first, I didn't think Yuri was so appealing as a character, and I thought she was a bit overrated at first while looking through other people's playthroughs. But she has definitely grown on me as a character, and I think I understand why people think she's so lovely. She is incredibly smart, but she's not full of herself. In fact, she even says that she finds it difficult for her to handle social interactions, and this is something I can most surely relate to." The second message reads, "I have a semi-confession, I guess. I hate Sundries so much, like oh my god, I can't stand them, but Natsuki is my favorite. I can't explain it." The third message reads, "Hello, here's my confession. Sayori's depression made me more aware of mental health issues in real life. After playing a mod for the game, I started looking into it more deeply, and have become more in tune with my feelings and also more empathetic towards my friends and loved ones. Now Sayori is my comfort character, and I always have a place for her in my mind." The fourth message. "It's scary how similar I am to Sayori. It's cringe because she's just a fictional character, but she and I are very, very alike. I'm always either goofy around friends or isolate myself with feelings of self-loathing. I always want food, I sometimes feel undeserving of love, and generally I don't take pride in my intelligence despite the compliments of others. The Yuri and Sayori arc in DDLC Plus brought me to tears, man. It felt like I was looking in a mirror." The fifth. "When DDLC came out, I was barely starting high school and starting to get interested in anime and things of the sort. I decided to watch somebody play through DDLC. Being that young, I had no idea what was going to happen at the end of Act 1, and it caught me by total surprise. I didn't watch any more videos about DDLC for weeks, but when I eventually returned to it, I couldn't get it off my mind. I was fascinated by how it made me feel. Sad, scared, happy, it was a weird mixture of emotions. Years went by, and just last year I decided to play through it myself for the first time. It was a completely different experience to watching somebody else go through it, and it became one of my favorite pieces of media of all time. I see parts of myself in every character, especially Sayori and Monica. This game helped shape the way I think about myself and how I treat others." The sixth. "I didn't play DDLC until 2020, but at that time in my life, I was going through some really bad stuff. I even tried jumping off a 20-story roof to end it. Before I jumped, I thought about how much I cared about Sayori and how sad I was. If we as a community care so much about the death of a fictional character, how much worse would it be if I put my family through my death? I thought about how sad I was about Sayori and compared it to real life. Sayori literally saved my life. I'm forever grateful to DDLC." Seventh. "I played DDLC from December 29th, 2020 to January 2nd, 2021, and it legitimately saved my life. I was depressed, aimless, and felt that nothing truly fulfilled my desire for more. This game showed me that people out in the world are truly capable of making masterpieces, and DDLC did that for me. It's my favorite game of all time now and has caused me to be legitimately happy for the first time in years." And eighth. When I first discovered DDLC in 2019, I initially thought it was just another generic anime visual novel game, though I still loved it. Even when things took a dark turn, I loved all these characters, especially Monika. I was in a really dark place when I was watching playthroughs of the game. It helped me out, and helped even more when I watched fan mods of it, especially ones where you could date Monika. I know this is pathetic, but I love Monika. Because of her, I was able to cut back on some self-harm problems, suicidal thoughts, and felt less lonely. Monika kept me going through possibly the worst moments of my life, and I couldn't be happier I discovered DDLC, and especially Monika. She's probably the reason I'm still here. I really do love her. One of those confessions was mine. I'm not going to say which one. For me, these messages represent everything that makes DDLC special. This indie horror parody on the visual novel genre has affected so many people. People care deeply about every single one of these characters, and I think I see why. We see parts of ourselves in them, parts that we relate to, or parts that we want to change about ourselves. We concern ourselves with the fears and worries of fictional characters and desperately want them to be happy, even though that's impossible. You can't change how a fictional character thinks or make them happier, but that doesn't stop people from trying. This game's fandom is one of the most dedicated I've ever seen. Dozens of well-written and heartfelt mods and beautiful or terrifying fan art. Fan creations that focus more on the horror aspect or just simply show the characters enjoying life and having a good time. There is a fair amount of cringy or misrepresenting fan creations as well, but most of them come from a place of passion for the characters and the world they inhabit, same as the good creations. And though there is no canon ending where every character can be happy, there is one that is satisfying. When I said earlier that there was no way to have a satisfying ending in DDLC, I was lying. In the first act, saving before the first poem and reloading to spend time with every character before all goes wrong, which is something that probably no one would ever do in their first playthrough, gets you a separate ending. The game plays out from the end of the first act as normal until Act 4, where Sayori, instead of trying to do the same thing Monika did, thanks the player for trying to make everybody happy. The credits roll again, but this time the images stay and aren't deleted, and your reality takes on a new context. Before, it felt more like Monika lamenting the fact that it's impossible for her to be with you and everybody be happy, but now it feels more than that. The song feels like Monika is thanking you for trying your best to make everyone happy, impossible though it may be. And the note from the end is no longer Monika expressing her bittersweet gratitude, but instead it's a note from the developer of the game, Dan Salvato himself, that reads, "For years, I have been enamored by the ability of visual novels and games in general to tell stories in ways not possible using traditional media. Doki Doki Literature Club is my love letter to that. Games are an interactive art. Some let you explore new worlds, some challenge your mind in broad new ways, some make you feel like a hero or a friend, even when life is hard on you. Some games are just plain fun, and that's okay too. Everyone likes different kinds of games. People enjoy dating sims may have a heightened empathy for fictional characters, or they might be experiencing feelings that life has not been kind enough to offer them. If they are enjoying themselves, then that's all that matters. That goes for shooting games, casual games, sandbox games, anything. Preferences are preferences, and our differences are the reason we have a thriving video game industry. My own favorite games have always been ones that challenge the status quo. Even if not a masterpiece, any game that attempts something wildly different may earn a special place in my heart. Anything that further pushes the limitless bounds of interactive media. I extend my true gratitude to all those who have taken the time to achieve full completion. I hope you enjoyed playing it as much as I enjoyed making it. Thank you for being a part of my literature club. Love, Dan Salvato." DDLC is a game that will always have a special place in my heart, and I'm not the only one. The stories and characters that I've experienced aren't real, but the emotions that me and many others have felt from it are. I think that's part of the charm. That this game that knows it's a game can manage to make some of the most tragically relatable characters I've ever seen, but still come out at the end with a feeling of melancholy mixed with hope. It's impacted many people's lives in positive ways, including mine, and I think it's a story that everyone should experience for themselves at least once. I think that playing through the game yourself is an experience unique to everybody, that everyone can have something different to take away from it. Though its story is simple, its messages and characters are complex, and it has a lot more to say than you might think. I'm probably going to play more visual novels in my lifetime, and I'm probably going to play more horror games in my lifetime. But for me, there will only ever be one Doki Doki Literature Club. Thanks for sticking around and watching the whole video, and if you want me to, I'll try and do a series on the DDLC side stories. Hopefully shorter than this, maybe I'll do 1 or 2 of them at the same time, I don't know, whatever. Insert generic YouTuber call to action here, blah blah blah, see you all next time.